Press 1 if you can hear me, and then I'll tell you what I did. I feel like the biggest moron on the planet. Can you guys hear me now? You can hear me now. You know what I didn't do the first time? You guys, I feel like the biggest dumbass on the planet. I'm sitting here talking and nobody's interacting. And I'm too stupid to figure out that I didn't hit go live. I was so nervous. I was so nervous that I forgot to hit go live. Well, I made it. I made it on late, but I made it on. Hey, Tommy Stiggs. Hey, Sally. BTF Phoenix. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I just was not thinking straight. I got so nervous and had so much on my mind that I didn't hit go live, and it says it. It says go live, and I just can't believe it. I was. See, the thing of it is I don't get nervous when I come on with FBS or when I've been on any other shows. But I just was so nervous. I've been working on this for this story I'm going to do. I've been looking at it all week long. I've been looking at it all week long. And I was just like, oh my God. And I'm sitting here talking and nobody's interacting. And I'm like doing all this talking. And now, like I said, I feel like an idiot. But at least I figured out what the problem was. At least it was nothing major. It was just my dumbassery. Hey, Matt, how are you doing, sweetheart? Dave, Chris Capello. Hey, Nick. You guys, thanks for being patient. Thanks for being patient. It's just crazy. Anyway, I was sitting here talking my ass off about this fella that I'm gonna talk about, and I know you guys are gonna know the story. It's 50 years old. Tommy Stiggs, I know all of you guys are probably going to know it. But here we go. As of July 30th, not this guy went missing July 30th, 1975. He was supposed to meet at a restaurant, right near his home. He went to meet these gentlemen and sat there and waited for them. Called his wife, said, Josephine, they're not here yet. They're not here. So, anyway, and he disappears. But we'll get into a little bit of the biography of this gentleman. This gentleman is Jimmy Hoffa. A little bit of background about him was he was president of the Teamsters Union, and a lot of people didn't like him. He had his hands in a lot of sticky stuff, allegedly organized crime, stuff like that, and yep, stuff like that, and he had been arrested and got in trouble for jury tampering, bribery, wire fraud, and he had been sentenced to 13 years. And he served, I think, like maybe 5, just very little bit of what he was sentenced to. And President Nixon made an agreement with him. I'm gonna let you out, but you're not gonna have anything else to do with the union. You can't. He couldn't even go to a meeting. He was banned from anything to do with Teamsters till 1980. Anyway, he won't having any of that. He won't having it. Hoffa was a very strong-willed man, and there was no way he wanted to get out. Yep, 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 yep. Anyway, he wanted to get out, and he wanted to take his position as head of Teamsters back, and that made a lot of people mad. And it's like they said, they were trying to tell him, just leave it alone. You're making, too many people mad. Well, I don't know if you guys ever seen any of the movies. The one Jack Nicholson played in, Hoffa, and then the next one Pacino played in, it was I Hear You Paint Houses. This guy Frank Sheeran had told this story, this big story. He was in the federal prison in Tennessee, and he had told this big story about. Yep, he had told this big story about knowing what happened to Hoffa, and he had the FBI all in a tizzy. It was like 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there. He had them all in a tizzy. They were digging up a farm in Northville, Michigan, looking for Hoffa. He says, I saw what they did. They took him out. They at this farm. They took him from the restaurant where they were meeting to this farm, and they took him out and they rolled him up in a piece of green carpet. And so anyway, they were out weeks and weeks digging on this farm and didn't find nothing, not one single thing. And then it was some house on the east or west side of Detroit. They were saying that he had been taken to and done away with, and they tore this house all apart because somebody said that there was blood. That was somebody's DNA, but it won't Hoffa's. And they've looked at a couple of different locations, and I think in the last couple of years they were in New Jersey at a junkyard or something, digging around looking for him, and nothing. He's been here, there. It was said he was in a highway, and then this gentleman came forward within the last several years or so and claimed at the time that Hoffa went missing, there were some buildings being built in Detroit. 3 buildings. General Motors built the RenCen in Detroit. 3 high rises. And they were coming up, and this guy claims he came to Detroit to work on these buildings, and he claims he's seen them in the basement of that building. But but the FBI won't even talk to that guy. The FBI won't. So I don't know that if that's credible or not, because there have been so many different stories, and it just absolutely nothing. Nothing anybody has said has been credible. I mean, they said that he was put in a meat auger and grinded up and then incinerated. Well, the meat packing place that he was supposedly incinerated at burnt down in a suspicious fire in Detroit in 1978, 3 years after Hoffa went missing. So, it was said that the powers that be from New York came and did away with him, but that just doesn't jive to me, because there was enough powers that be in Detroit, and they had their own situation. I don't think they needed to call anybody in. But now, hey, I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but I think that it was taken care of. Yes, exactly. He was done in Detroit. It just makes no sense for anybody to come from the East Coast, get him, when there were guys here, when there was plenty of organized crime. I mean, it's just it's crazy. Plus I think if New York had done it, we'd have knew every detail. We'd have knew every detail, every single thing that happened, really, probably pretty quick. That's just my opinion, though. But it does make you wonder. Hey, Edward Everett. Hey, Edward. How 50 years, how a man that powerful can just poof, no sign, no nothing. No nothing. Yeah, man, I agreed. Salerno and other bosses agreed. Yeah. Yep, because he was in prison that couple of years, and they had put somebody else in his place, and they got the agreements they wanted. And oh, Edward Everett. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. They might have called New York in to keep the heat off themselves. It really makes you wonder, because like I was saying, for years they were saying New York, he was in one of the bridges in New York. And then, like I say, the whatever was said about New Jersey made them wonder enough that this has been within the last 5 years. They went there and were tearing stuff apart looking. So, but 50 years, it's just getting down, to the nitty gritty now. I wonder how long. Well, I guess it depends on where they would put him. How long? Because I heard that it was said one time he was in the golf course in a golf course in Georgia, at whatever hole, under whatever hole it was. It was said that I'm trying to remember what mob guy was down there playing golf. And it was said that he looked over at the guy he was standing with and says, well, Hoffa's underneath us. We're playing golf on Hoffa, or however he phrased it. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, people say stuff like that. And like I say, nothing has in all these years panned out. Because yeah, he like I say, he was supposed to meet with those guys at the Marcus Red Fox at 2:30. And back in them days there were no cell phones. So he sat there and probably smoked a bunch of cigarettes and waited and waited and waited, and they didn't show up. Well, he sat there, I can't remember how long, probably 10, 15 minutes, and he called his wife, Josephine, and said, honey, I don't know if these guys are going to show up or not, because the meeting was supposed to have taken place there at that restaurant inside with Tony Pro. He was the head of Detroit Mob back then. And Jackalone, Anthony, Tony Black Jackalone, or whatever his name was, to 1975, Sally, July 30th, 1975. Yeah, well, that's what Michael Francis was saying, that he knows where he's at, and it is wherever it's at, it's wet. It just, like I say, I'm wondering, how long. I'm wondering if it'll ever be solved, because now anybody that had any ties to it at all, I would think is gone. Long gone. But yeah, I would love to go to that mob museum in Vegas. Have any of y'all ever been? Nah, you're probably right, man. It probably won't be, but it is sure good to speculate. And yeah, that, like I was saying, that meatpacking place where it was said that thought he was taken to and incinerated, burnt, like I say, that burnt down in 78 under suspicious circumstances, So yeah, it makes you wonder, how can somebody, because like I say, he had his hands in a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And his wife, she passed away of a broken heart. But you know what intrigues me further than that is the fact that his son, James P. Hoffa, is 84 years old. And they put him in charge. He was president of Teamsters from it was either 1988 until recently, or 1998. One of the two. It just was that, like nepotism, like they gave his son the job. I mean, I'll always wonder, you didn't want him there, but you put his son in, years later. But I never heard anything bad about his kid, so. But that just, it makes you wonder. Yeah, it is nepotism. Yeah, because he was in it, like I say, it was either from 1988 till recently, till 19, one or the two. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Teamsters, I'm telling you, those guys, I'm telling you, this place I worked for many years ago hauled our equipment for us from place to place, site to site. And we were in one union, and they were in, the Teamsters. And I'll never forget one of the girls telling me, well, we got to hope that these guys, our truck drivers, don't strike. I don't know how to drive one of these trucks. Because if they would have went on strike, we would have had to haul our own equipment. But that didn't happen, so not then anyway. But yeah, but I remember them being Teamsters. Didn't they go to some horse farm? Yes. Yes, they went to the horse farm in Northfield, Michigan. They were in Northfield for a while, and they didn't find any side of him, because that Frank Sheeran, told them, yeah, I seen them take him out there, and they did this, and they wrapped him up in a green carpet and buried him. Yeah, yep. They went there. They went to a house and took the floorboards of a house out, looking, because they were said his blood was there, and never found anything. Yeah, they made sure. They made really, really, really sure that they left nothing behind. I'm telling you, they didn't. Nobody. They're like, we're not going to jail for this. we're not going to jail for this at all. We're going to make sure when we do it, it's a wrap. Because, so many times things like that have happened, but then, there's another case where someone was never found either. Tommy Stiggs, my father and my uncles did well as Teamsters. I actually turned down the offer when I was 18. Hoffa made the working man's life. I always heard good things about him. I always, heard really good things about him, but he pissed a lot of people. He pissed off maybe not a lot of people, but some people. But yeah, that's what I always heard, that he did good, for the Teamsters. And honestly, I never heard nothing bad about his son, James P. Hoffa. I never heard nothing bad about him, and he comes across as, a very intelligent man. Hell, he's 84 years old now, and Hoffa's daughter moved to St. Louis, Missouri, and was a judge. She became a lawyer, judge there. I'm sure she's in her 80s now, retired, hopefully, living her best life, I hope. But yeah, they were saying that Miss Josephine Hoffa, she basically, poor lady, she died of a broken heart. I mean, Jimmy was the only man that, she loved, and she, not knowing, can you imagine, being married to someone and him not coming home, and for the rest of your life. I think she passed away in 2000. But yeah, outliving him 40 plus years, and him leaving one day, and the last time she kissed him on the cheek and said, honey, or talked to him on the phone that day. That's right. That day he called and said, they're late. I'll be home when, I don't know exactly when I'll be home. The fellows were late, whatever it was he said to her. Can you imagine her saying, well, I'll wrap you a plate? Because you know how 50s and 60s, that it was, their marriage was traditional. I think they got married in 41. But yeah, she's probably like, well, I'll wrap you a plate, honey. Or he's probably like, like my dad would say to mama, he'd be like, oh, don't stay up. It's going to be past bedtime when I get home, like that. And she probably had had no idea that he want, you don't think of things like that. You don't think. That's what Melania keeps hoping for. I'm going to get you. Yeah, I can't disagree on that. I really can't, because Melania will be walking beside him with that resting bitch face, and she just has that look on her face like, I would just love to bitch slap him one good time. Oh, or when is this prenup up? When is this contract over? Thank you, Tommy. But yeah, can you imagine that though? Just, or can you, put yourself in that? Can you imagine pissing off people to the point to where you get gone? I mean, to where you get gone for 50 years goes by and they still really don't know where you are. And there was this reporter. Her name was, I'm trying to think, I wrote it down right here. There was this reporter, every now and then, Chucky O'Brien would call her, and he was kind of like an associate. He was close to the Jackalones. He had ties to the Detroit mob. He was supposedly driving the day Hoffa got gone. We'll never know. He's since passed away. But every now and then he would call and talk to her through the years. And he was telling her, some story about borrowing a car that day, and all of that. And she just, always thought that they had something to do with it, and had him, making it look like he was like the gullible driver, because they were saying supposedly that maybe Chucky was driving that day, that they were going to meet with Tony Pro and Billy Jack, or Tony Jack. And yeah, but Hoffa wouldn't have gotten a car with anybody he didn't trust, but still. But yeah, you're right, Matt. And that other case that I won't bring up in here, They were saying that that fella was taken out and put in acid too, because how many years has it been since he went missing? Yeah, no one ratted. That's loyalty. Yep, yep. Amazing. Back that many years ago, nobody said a word. Yeah, yeah. Still, you don't, and Novi Toku is out of Witsec. He was in Witsec many years, but he's out now, I think. I think I seen a video when I was researching this Hoffa stuff. Scott Bernstein is teamed up with Novi on Original Gangster podcast, I think. But yeah, yeah, yeah. No one can prove a thing. I mean, people like Matt said, you can say all day long. Yeah, you can say all day long. I could say like that one fella that showed up and was saying that he saw three three of three of the Gambinos with Hoffa. I think he said Gambinos. I'd have to go back and look. And said that he was in the bottom of one of the buildings. Yeah, they wanted the FBI won't even talk to him. So that makes you wonder: is there something to what that gentleman's saying? He ain't young anymore, but makes you wonder because he was saying he wants to get that ground penetrating radar where it can detect human remains. He wants to get that and scan the bottom of the Rinsen to see. But yeah, yeah, somebody to said it. If that shit hadn't, Hoffa would have been found in 7 business days. Today, yes, FPS. Somebody with that, what a powerful bargaining chip. Like I was saying a while ago, it's a powerful bargaining chip if you can say you know where Hoffa is or if you knew anything about it. Yep, exactly. Exactly. Somebody just said, oh, yeah, hell yeah. My mom ain't sending me no money for commissary no more. I'm going to tell where he's at so I can go and get out. Or tell for a honey bun. Heck yeah. You know Tony Pizza tell for some of them stinky old sardines and a gallon of warm milk. Ugh. But yeah, yeah. Yeah, and we were talking about it the other day about, how the mob still exists, but how they had to change. And we've said that before, and I know people get tired of talking about it, and get tired of hearing about it, but it don't matter where you're from. If it's the mob still over in the old country in Italy, but now Detroit wouldn't take anybody except Sicilians. You had to be just Sicilian, or or that's what I heard. I'll have to go back and look at that. But yeah, yeah, that made me queasy too. But yeah, whether it's the old country or here, it's. Thank you, Todd Father. Thanks for showing up for me. But yeah, it's amazing how they had to change with the times because they couldn't conduct themselves the way they did. Yeah, yep, yep. They couldn't conduct themselves the way they used to. And Detroit also had the Polish guys out of Hamtramck, and they had the purple guys too, the Jewish guys. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now you can't do nothing now and get away with it. There are cameras everywhere. Basically anymore, like the big cities and all that. It's amazing how good those cameras work too. Because I was watching one of those shows, the Who Done It shows, and they were showing the cops were pulling somebody up on a camera on the side of the street. How good, how clear it was. It's crazy. Yeah. Yep, Rico. What do y'all think? Diddy's sentencing, I think, is it next month? I've about quit keeping up with it now because he, basically only got, the transporting for prostitution. He got out of the bigger charges. So I got really into the Kohlberger stuff. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you. You guys make it easy. Having you guys in the chat engaging makes it a lot easier. I don't know if I could do like a premiere, like do a video and then drop it. I don't know. I guess maybe I might end up trying that sometime. But yeah, yeah, it's crazy how, now with forensic science being what it is, you can't. But yeah, like I was saying, I got into. Yeah, do you think that? I'm wondering. I'm really wondering if he'll. It wouldn't surprise me though. It really wouldn't. And Ghislaine, I'm seeing that they moved. Excuse me, they moved Ghislaine to Texas. So that makes you wonder what they're cooking up with her to move her to Texas, because they moved her. That facility in Texas looked pretty nice. I know prison, but it looked newer. But they moved her with Jen Shaw. She was one of the housewives of that Utah that ripped somebody off, and then that Holmes lady. But yeah, they ripped her. They Ghislaine. You like that, Bobby? Ghislaine. That's how I say it. Ghislaine, baby. But yeah, they're cooking up something with her. Yeah, yeah, they're cooking up something. And then Kohlberger, the stuff coming out on him. If I was those kids' parents, I'd be so mad. I wouldn't have wanted him to get a plea deal in the first place. But all of the stuff that's coming out about Kohlberger, about the autopsy reports and all are coming out. I mean, he just he slashed Kaylee her face. But yeah, it just because they're like, well, I think he was after Maddie, but he did more Kaylee. He did less damage to Ethan, but I think it was because he was sleeping. I think he just he lacerated his heart and his lung. He was the last stabbed one of all of them. Yeah, maybe pizza forensic lawyers could figure it out. Well, he's got a team. He's got a whole team. He's got the next Johnny Cochran on his team. The next Robert Shapiro. Yeah, yep. Forensics. I'm telling you now, you got to be. I don't know if any of you guys watched Dexter, but you got to be like Dexter, and cover everything in plastic. Is anybody watching Dexter Resurrection or whatever? I haven't started watching that yet. But I watched the first series, and then I watched the second one after he had got away, and his son was looking. I watched that one, but I haven't started watching this new one yet. But I mean, you got to be like Dexter. And I mean, hell, he worked in forensic. Yeah, pizza knows ample words. I tell you, there's not much more you can really, really say about that guy. There's not much more you can really say. Yet, what did you think of it, Sally? Because I've seen a few of the commercials for it. But yeah, you got to be like Dexter, know how to cover all your bases. Because one little thing, and poop, you're getting caught. Yeah, I hadn't been watching anything new lately. I hadn't got anything into anything. It's been a minute. I binge watched Mad Men. I really got into Mad Men, and I don't know why, but I really did. I like John Hamm. So I binge watched that, but as far as really getting into anything, I just haven't found anything. I get bored. So I've been going back to true crime. I was watching the stuff on Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. I don't know if y'all know. I know y'all heard of him. His one of his relatives, that says son-in-law's cousin or something, somebody that's related to him, started a podcast. I wish I could think of the name of it now here on YouTube, because it's really good when I found it by accident. That's how I found it. But yeah, they were talking about him and just how normal he appeared. Yeah, just how normal he appeared. He was married a couple of times. Oh, was it the Predator movie? Is animation? Yeah, I didn't know that either. But yeah, Gary Ridgway. I'm trying to remember how many he confessed to, but once they started looking into checking, DNA and stuff, that they got him, because one of the females had carpet fibers from his living room on her shoe. I think that's how they got him for one of them. But yeah, his like I say, relatives doing that, and then that happy face killer guy Jepson, he gave an interview to one of these YouTube guys. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. But I guess he really wasn't talking about nothing major. Yeah, I watch all the 70s and 80s. Yeah, yep, I do that too. I went back and, gosh, I went on a Little House on the Prairie binge like you wouldn't believe. It's crazy, but and I got sick of it, so I won't watch it again for a while. And then I'll watch Andy Griffin. I love him. It brings me back to a better time, even though I wasn't alive in the '60s. I just like that show, because it reminds me of my granny and stuff. So many of the old Southern ladies are like Aunt B and the ladies on Andy Griffin. But yeah, I got to find something new, something scary, something good, scary. But I'm not into like the paranormal hauntings and stuff. Gilligan's Island and yep, yep, yep. I watched a lot of Three's Company when I was younger. Oh yeah, I love Aunt B. And Aunt B, when she passed away, she had never been married and never had any children. So she left her house. She loved Mayberry, North Carolina so much, Mount Airy, from, Andy Griffin, that she moved there and she fed all the stray cats. She lived in her house. It was not a mansion, it was a modest style home. Y'all can look it up. It's here on YouTube, as a matter of fact. Look up Aunt B's house. And she left her estate to the city or whatever. And yes, married to children. Bobby, you remember, I'll never forget, I was still living at home. I was an early teenager when that came on. But do you remember all the hell that got raised over that show? They first started it coming on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. Boy, all the people threw a fit over it, remember? And they moved it, and it didn't do as well. So they were like, you guys are going to have to get over it. And they moved it back to Sunday night, but had it coming on at 9 o'clock, remember? They threw a fit over Married with Children, and I don't see what was so bad about that show. But yeah, loved it, loved it, loved it. Al was so miserable. I mean, just the look on his face. And the things he said, some of the comebacks he said. Mindhunter on HBO, yes. The first season, Matthew McConaughey was in one of the seasons. Who else? I think they did 3 seasons of it and stopped it, but it was awesome. I love Mindhunter. No, wait, am I getting that confused with something else? Yes, Mindhunter with one of the last season they did was the Atlanta child killings. Was the last season they did, I think. But I love Mindhunter. Loved it. Loved it. And it was a True Detective was the one I was thinking of with Matthew McConaughey before that, where they ended it abruptly too. I think it was True Detective or whatever. It was an HBO one. But yeah, Al on his sofa with his hands in his pants, just looking miserable, just so miserable, not happy about a thing. That was a good show. Christina Applegate, all the guys at the time thought she was like the hottest girl, and her name was in several lyrics of songs. True Detective, yes, yes, Sally, yes, I loved it, loved it. Yes, yes. I didn't watch as much of the last season as the other ones, but yeah, I love Mindhunter, and I love the people that acted on Mindhunter. The actors that were on that were very good. Yeah, I wish they'd put it back on. Hmm. I haven't watched Jodie Foster in anything in a while. It's been a while. She had her time too, like everybody else, where she was just in everything and then taking a rest. But if there's any other stories you guys want me to do, like I say, Jimmy, we could speculate about Jimmy Hoffa all day as to what happened to him. And like I say, I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think it's just gonna be one of the mysteries. People are gonna be talking about it forever and ever and ever because, like I say, anybody that had really anything to do with it, they're gone now. It's gonna take somebody, maybe whoever did it, maybe their family or whatever will maybe run into some evidence in the future and come forward. Who knows? You never know. Be neat to know, but there is so much. The Great Lakes are a big place. They could have just did what they needed to do, and boom. Tony Pizza, yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna say, Nick. I'm surprised he hadn't come over here and said shit. I come up there. Hell, he was what? 75. Pizza would have been what, about 10 years old? He could have handled that shit. He could have handled that kind of hit. What do y'all think? He could have handled it. Yeah, hell, he knows everything. He was the hit enforcer. He's done a little bit of everything. Yeah, it's crazy. And then there's so much happening. There's this Devil's Den. Ain't that something with that story? How the guy took out the mom and dad, but the mom, kind of, helped the kids, get away. It's something. And then, you got all these people, just going out and doing crazy stuff at Walmart. What makes you decide that you want to go to Walmart and hurt somebody at Walmart? I don't go to Walmart. You'd probably think I would, but I haven't been to Walmart in a very long time. And there ain't one that far from here, but from my house. But yeah, I don't get in the mood to hurt anybody when I go to Walmart. Do y'all? Something I don't think to myself, I'm gonna get to Walmart and just get mad and just go off on somebody. Yeah, yep, first hit. First hit, and then Sonny Francis could have fed him a BLT. He said shit, he fed him bacon, sat him right up on his lap, which would have been impossible because Sonny Francis was in prison. I'm fairly certain he was probably in prison all of Pete's childhood, all of our childhood. He spent a long stretch, if I'm not mistaken, in prison. I stay home if I'm bad mood. Exactly. Exactly. I got to tell you guys this. This is just the funniest story. I asked my grandson yesterday, I said, "You want to walk to the store?" He says, "Yeah, Mimi, let's go." And I live on a, fairly busy street and everything. And we're walking, and I try when we're walking to the store, when we're walking past people's driveways, I try to pay attention to make sure there ain't no cars coming. Well, there's a little restaurant down the street from my house. It's fairly busy, and I try to watch people coming in and out of there too. Well, I had him with me and was concentrating on stuff and wasn't paying attention. The lady on the van, luckily she was. Time I thought about it, I looked up and there she was. She was stopped. She's like, "I was watching you. I knew you weren't looking." I said, "My goodness, thank you so much, for not hitting us." And Archer turns around and goes, "Watch where you're going, you idiot." And she didn't hear him. Thankfully, she didn't hear him. But I was like, "Archer, don't you ever do that again." And he said, "Well, Mimi, I heard you saying it, when you were driving." I'm like, "I don't care what you hear me say. Don't repeat it. You're going to get yourself in trouble." But yeah, watch where you're going, you idiot. Oh, thank you, Tommy Stiggs. Thank you. I appreciate you coming in here. Don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. And I think you come on early, early, early in the morning for coffee. Yeah, don't be a stranger. It's been fun. I don't know. Like I've always said, FBS makes it look so easy when he comes on and goes on for over an hour. I don't understand. I guess I'll find my niche, and I do like talking about true crime. And Hoffa still a good story, still a good story. But yeah, this is fun. I like doing this. I love true crime. And like I say, that they're doing the little bit information paperwork drop on the Kohlberger stuff, and it just, like I say, if I would have been a DA or whatever in that case, I wouldn't have wanted to give him any kind of agreement. I would have wanted to go for that death penalty, but like they say, it costs a lot of money to house a death penalty person and all this. They have excuses. So, but anyway, it's 1 o'clock and I've been on about 40 minutes. I'm not going to keep y'all any longer. I'm glad everybody showed up to talk with me today, to listen to me. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. BTF, Tommy Stiggs, Bobby, Sally, Nick, Michael Hensley, all of you guys for coming in. Matt, thank you, sweetheart. Hold on a second. I got to do something for you. Oh, let's see. I'm just getting the hang of stuff. So there we go. So you'll be wrenched the next time, Matt. And we'll see you guys on the next one. I don't know when I'll do it again. I don't like to jump the gun. I'm just gonna do it whenever I feel like it, I guess. But anyway, you guys have a good Sunday, and we'll see you in the next chat.